here and over there. You're trying to juggle this thing, this project over here, and this project over there. So that becomes really, the scattered energy, especially during Mars in its actual retrograde period of time. So multitasking. That's another aspect of Gemini too. Is very good at multitasking. And the kind of this is sort of a takeoff of Braca Goldsmith, who I was watching. I was discussing that it also deals with information and being very conscious of how, what you're taking in and how it's making you react. So you can kind of consider what kind of the information that you took in and how it made you react over the period of time. For example, November 21st, when I found out that I had to complete an assignment in a particular day, and it was really difficult. It involved reading and analysis, and I was stressed, and my actions were not aligned in wisdom and the highest good because Mars was retrograde squaring Neptune and Pisces. And so the information of knowing, you have this assignment to do, created stress and created all these kind of things. And looking back, I honestly wish I just didn't bother doing the assignment at all. And I just wish I just forfeited that and then felt peace within myself to accept the missing grade that I got, as opposed to having it ruin my night. And, and not only that, but just, I still get the thought of my computer. And now I'm thinking about that ongoing guilt, too, with that. Mars and Gemini, motivated by, is there something stimulated? If stuff is boring, then there's not a whole lot of motivation. Motivated to talk. Motivated to, acting in the way of communicating and thinking. Sharp mind, motivated by what's going on in the environment, too. Verbal assertion, this sort of a basic surface level definition of Mars and Gemini is verbal through words. I'm thinking to myself, well, everybody is, even if Mars and Aries is very, it's not just primal, we're physically fighting, so I feel like that's very surface level and immediate. You have to unpack and get into the nuances and get into the specifics and go into more depth. Astrology can only take you so far. There's only so many levels of when it comes to the meaning of certain signs, all those kind of things like that. But so anyway, there's always more to learn. And it's important to be open to learning because Gemini deals with learning. Another thing I just want to mention and throw in here is the debate room. People debating their different sides. Gift of the gab. Doing too many things at once. That was a time to simplify what you're doing so you're not overwhelmed, because feeling overwhelmed was probably pretty common during that particular time. Calm the mind. Calming the mind, definitely. Because I experienced it several times that my mind was really amped up. Especially with Betty McGarry assignments when I was in an intro to lit class. That was not conducive for Mars retrograde in Gemini. And that's sort of the aspect of life, those assignments I had to do for that class, where the mental overwhelm or the stress really showed up. And then you combine that with the overwhelm of thoughts and feelings of guilt, squaring Neptune and Pisces. Mars retrograde, time to think, go inward, reflect before we act more so. Something that I did not always follow and practice what I preach was take small and conscious steps forward. I did not always do that. I can point out a couple of times, several times where I did not do that. And I wish I took my own advice, but I can say it and it sounds so easy, it makes so much sense, it's so obvious, but then, you really feel it at a particular amount of time. And I'm sure you probably also felt low motivation of energy. It's also where initiating new things can be hard too. They also, astrologers recommend not to do that. The last thing is turning the awareness on to how we think, how we react, and where our focus is going. In a really small example, that would be looking at an article. Is it worth your time? So, those are some basic things. There's a couple aspects here, but I don't want to get into that. I'm just giving you sort of just some stuff and some information about what that is about. Now, in order to apply, my hands are clean, in order to apply that information, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be writing just a sort of story, like a personal narrative in that same format with the same information. I still have it written up on the board. Your name, Lopez Noble, Mars retrograde. You can just put RX for abbreviation, Mars retrograde, in Gemini reflection. So you're going to put that as your assignment title, which goes below LP Noel, and then the date, which is March 15, comma, no TH, 2023. That is the MLA format for writing dates. That is what you do with kind of academic stuff, even though this is not a class. There's multiple different layers and aspects to this invention, and the classroom teaching part of it is one huge part of it. So, March 15, no TH, comma, 2023. That's how you write that out. I don't know why it matters, but I'm just going to say it does matter, so just be sure you do that. Okay. So, so you're going to be just writing about your whole experience and sort of the issues that you're going to be working with. And I will challenge you to go look at your natal chart and find out which house based off of your sun. But, I think your rising sign of which house it was impacting you in your life, and then sort of do some research about that house and about the particular house, what it means, and then sort of, if you can, I challenge you to sort of put the puzzle pieces together of Mars retrograde in Gemini in this particular house. And you can also read about Mars retrograde in Gemini in whatever house in terms of the transit, not the placement. So that's important because we're looking at transits here. So you're going to need to know that. You're going to need to sort of just reflect on what your experiences is and consider certain themes in your life, certain issues that you've had, that you were dealing with, and challenges that you had to face, and sort of how you, again, grew and evolved during this time period. You're sort of considering all those kind of different things and then putting it together either in a written piece or you're making a video about it. Either way is fine. I think it is important for you to provide the astrological evidence to tie in, okay, this was happening for me in my 11th house, and so this is, I experienced, it was difficult for me to assert myself when it comes to a group project I had to do in this class. Yeah, I mean, what was the sort of example with the sort of astrological evidence and proof to back whatever you're saying up? And it doesn't have to be your entire essay. Maybe you can just say, okay, this was my experience and this is what happened for me, but I'm also including, so it's both ends. You can just include your experience and certain things that you were working with, and you can also include your 1, 2, 3, yeah. So, and you can also include, so both talking about your experiences, you're talking about the lessons that you learned, how you've grown, how you've evolved, but then you're also talking about the astrology bit. So you want to sort of section that out and prioritize and map out where you're going to put which as part of your either writing or video. But you do want to include your the house that it was impacting your Gemini house based off of your rising sign, whatever that may be. I'm a Sagittarius rising, so it was my 7th house. So, and then sort of maybe think about, and you can also create, if it's sort of in concrete and you're having a hard time coming up with something, just sort of take what you can and just use that and then try to find a way of coming up with something to say. And creating that. And getting into that, explaining that and how the characteristics and traits in the astrology of Mars retrograde in Gemini ties into your experience. So it would also be important for you to go research the transit of Mars retrograde in Gemini. This is actually starting September 5th through now, through today. That's the time period. So you want, it's not only the retrograde, remember, it's the retrograde, but then the pre-shadow and the post-shadow. So that whole frame of time from September 5th through today, March 15th, that's what you want to consider. And that's what your narrative, sort of personal narrative, is about. Your sort of real-life astrology, as Maria Simone talks about it. So, that's, she's very personal with, her life and sort of teaching it while sort of sharing what is going on and what has happened in her life to show certain techniques or explain certain concepts of astrology, whatever she wants to do. So, you do want to consider that too. So, any questions now? This is going to be due. This is where we really need to get on the ball with stuff. It is going to be due March 25th. You have about 10 days to get this done. 10 days. Mars is moving on it. I mean, it just makes sense. For those of you going on the Joker trip, you may have less time. So just sort of plan to get it done before your trip to Joker, which is happening a day later from that concert on the new moon on the 21st of the month. I'll do a video about that this weekend on my YouTube channel. So tune in for that. So yeah. Any questions regarding this? Under 5 pages, I would say. Yeah. Any other kind of question? Yes. Well, you want to consider probably going into an introduction, sort of introducing how the experience was, basically. So just sort of giving a summary of your experience, and and you're sort of giving a sort of summary of what Mars retrograde season in Gemini means, or what Mars in Gemini means. You're acknowledging all, post shadow, pre shadow, retrograde shadow, or retrograde phase. So you're talking about that, and you're giving just a basic understanding of what that means, and what that means corresponding to the house placement in your chart. And just saying what what was basically about for you, and then that paragraph you're sort of going through and sort of unraveling the different characteristics and traits and qualities of Mars retrograde in Gemini, and that alone, and particularly what it means based off of the house in your chart, what it meant, and how it impacted, or how you were impacted by, or how it reflected you in your life. Because the planets don't do stuff, they reflect us, where we are, where we need to go. That's Michael Lennox's view of astrology. So how did it reflect what was going on in your life, and what were the challenges and lessons that you were dealing with, and what did you need to learn, and all those kinds of different things need to be taken into account. So maybe one paragraph would be just Mars retrograde. So your first paragraph would be Mars retrograde and Gemini in general, and how that just generally impacted you. And then your second paragraph deals with your house placement and how that impacted you in your life. Just in terms of combining with Mars retrograde in Gemini, so you want to consider, well, Mars retrograde in Gemini is impacting me in this way specifically, but also the house placement. So you're first talking about, one paragraph is what was going on in your life at the time, what were the challenges that you were dealing with. Then that next paragraph is talking about how did Mars retrograde in Gemini specifically impact you, and then by the house placement also, how did Mars retrograde in Gemini in your ninth house, how did that affect you in the area of life related to travel, higher education, whatever, ninth house stuff. So that's, the houses are also really important to consider those. So then I'd say cut two body paragraphs if you're thinking about that. One, your introduction. Two, you're talking about what was going on at the time, your lessons, your challenges, what was your life experience at the time, what was your outlook on life, maybe. Also to consider. And then your second paragraph is how did Mars and Gemini impact you, combined with the house placement. How did Mars and Gemini in whatever house that is your Gemini house based off of your ascendant, how did that impact you? And how were you affected by it? And what did you learn? How did you grow and evolve from that? Then your final paragraph is just sort of a conclusion, wrapping stuff up, concluding stuff. And this is sort of what I've learned, who I've become because of this, and leaving sort of something that the audience can take away, leaving what I can call the legacy statement, or just a profound statement of what the audience can take away, and leaving a sort of impact or something, food for thought of what the audience can take away that is going to be different than what was originally in your introduction, and something meaningful and profound at the end of your writing, or at your at your video. I mean, with the based on if you're doing it in the format of writing it out or doing it through a video form, you do want to consider these different things, and you do want to sort of put all these different elements in the same order. So I do not want to have to go through all this stuff for the video. You can sort of figure that out. But basically, that whole structure that I was listing, you also will probably need to, you also would need to provide the same thing in that same structure in that video. And the rest is, up to you, but it's that structure that you need to follow and give, whether you're doing it as a writing assignment, or as a personal narrative where you're writing it out, or as a video. Whatever you choose, then include that kind of format, that structure to it. So I hope that that's clear. Okay. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Okay. So, say you were, a Leo rising, then Leo would be your first house. So there's 12 houses, just like there's 12 signs. Leo, whenever a planet would enter Leo, whenever there would be a full moon or new moon or eclipse in Leo, whenever there'd be a planet transiting in the sky, going retrograde or direct in that sign, then in your chart, based off of your ascendant, Leo rules your first house. And then Virgo is your second house, Libra is your third house, Scorpio is your fourth house, Capricorn fifth, Aquarius sixth, Pisces seventh, Aries is your eighth house, Taurus is your 10th house, Gemini is your 11th house, Cancer is your 12th house. So that's just an example, and you can sort of apply that to whatever your rising sign. So whatever your rising sign is, so let's say you're a Sagittarius rising, Sagittarius would be your first house. It always begins, whatever your rising sign is, that would be your first house, and you can sort of take that, and then, okay, that's your first house, so this might be your second house. This might be your third house. So Capricorn, if you're a Sagittarius rising, would be your second house. Aquarius would be your third house, etc. So that's the kind of, that's sort of how that is set up and how that is meant to be. And of course, it can differ, but that, with that particular, let's just use that and make it simple, just apply that knowledge and that system and that approach to this, the rising sign ruling over your first house, whatever it is. And then, then you can find out what all the rest of the houses mean based off of the different signs. Again, 12 signs, 12 houses. You get it. So, anything else that anyone wants to ask? Yes, 11:59 p.m. So, now, I'm going to stop. I think I'm just going to call this. Now you can go in the theater. and we're going to be watching a couple videos. Pion Gregory, and also listening to Eric Barnum, who is a choral singer, and he was born today, on this day on March 15th. So you can go watch him in the theater, watch his music videos, videos on his YouTube channel. You'll be watching that. Before that, you'll be watching Pion Gregory's video on the new moon in Aries, happening March 21st. So you'll be doing that. You'll be watching those videos. It is Pion Gregory's birthday. The sun is conjunct Neptune today, so we do have that kind of spiritual, energy of merging the conscious with the unconscious, spiritual, empathetic, psychic nature with your sort of ego. So, that's what's going on. And of course, I will have Neptune coming up to conjunct my sun. Within 14 years, I want to say, beginning in 2025, 2026. So, I'll have that at one point, and I will choose spirituality. I will surrender. I will, let go and all those kind of things, and I will be ready when I have a Saturn return, and I'm trying to be more disciplined with Saturn and Pisces and pulling out the oracle cards. Colette Baron Reed did a launch party for her oracle deck, which is the Dreamweaver's Oracle. I'm not going to buy it because I have enough decks. I don't need any more decks. And I am grateful and content for the decks that I do have. And get this, I am not going to go to Oracle Palooza Virtual because it's just sitting on my computer all day long being chained to my bedroom or wherever I'm sitting, and I'm probably not going to get too much out of it, and it's going to be so much money that I have to pay, and no, it's just my spirituality is on my own terms at my own time, and I really think that that's so huge. And now, looking at it that particular way, I realize that no, I'm on board with that. You can buy whatever deck from Colette Baron Reed that you want to, but do not buy Goddess Power Oracle and Crystal Healing Oracle because or Crystal Spirit Oracle. There is some gray area and something really fishy with those particular decks because they were done not out of Colette's own sort of intuition and own inner knowing of I want to do this, but there was some other, reasons for the creation of those decks. And I would not recommend that you go purchase them. Because with the Goddess Power Oracle, Colette copyrighted and plagiarized information, or she took something and then made it so inaccurate and covering up what it was, making certain goddesses from certain cultures into goddesses that they were not, and that they are not, and she put certain images that were inaccurate of the goddesses, which were very offensive to certain people, such as Hindu people. If they're very devoted to these gods, and you have a spiritual teacher that these people look up to, let's say they follow Colette, then she comes out with this deck, and she um, did not do the right things. So yeah, it's crazy to me, and I can't believe that she would do that kind of thing like that. I really don't. Anyway, I just that whole rant going on. But maybe I will pull a card maybe and then put it up for all of you or something. You can pull cards from the Dream Rivers Oracle on online without having to pay all that money. You can pull those cards and do that. So that's it. So enough of me talking on and on and on. Now you can go to the theater and watch those videos. Okay, so this part of the meeting anyway, this particular meeting is over at this point. So thank you for waiting, holding on for me. I appreciate it. Yeah. So thank you.